What is up, guys? Delboy here. So the first Matchroom USA DAZN card has been announced, and the fight I want to talk about in particular is the fight between Jarrell Miller and Tomasz Adamek. What an absolute stinker. Terrible fight as far as I'm concerned. Tomasz Adamek is shot to bits. He is significantly past his best. He is 42 this year. You know, the guy was a former light heavyweight champion, former cruiserweight champion. He's a very small heavyweight. Adamek never found the same success at heavyweight that he did at light heavyweight and cruiserweight. You know, Adamek was best at cruiserweight. And he is now shot to bits. I mean, you know, I'd say he's been shot for a good 5 or 6 years, man. I mean, he took a beating to Vitali Klitschko back in 2011, September 2011. That fight took a lot out of him because he took a beating that night. You know, he was hurt several times, he was dropped and he was stopped. That was a really one-sided beating and that was hard to watch. And even back then in September 2011, that was not a prime Adamek. He was past his best then, but now he's completely shot. I mean, since that Vitali Klitschko fight, he's lost to Tsar Glaskov, he's lost to Arthur Spielka, he got knocked out against Eric Molina. His last significant wins were back in 2012, and they were when he beat Steve Cunningham in the rematch, and that fight was a robbery. Cunningham won that, and he also beat Eddie Chambers that year, and again, he looked terrible in that fight. Eddie Chambers had one arm, and Adamek still only scraped through. And they were his last 2 good wins. He was past his best then. He is completely shot now. Like I said, he's 42 in December. You know, he's small for the weight. He's taken beatings. He's not going to have anything to keep Jarrell Miller off of him. It's a shocking bit of matchmaking. It really, really is. And the fact that Jarrell Miller ducked Pulev to take this fight is an absolute disgrace. Terrible, terrible fight. And any criticism that Miller gets from this is deserved. And if he doesn't run through Adamek, it really is a terrible look. Like I said, this is a guy who got knocked out by Eric Molina a couple of years ago now. You know, it's a joke fight. And let's not pretend otherwise. I'm sure there was better heavyweights than a shot Tomasz Adamek. Surely. There must have been. I know a lot of guys have just fought or have fights booked, but still surely there was someone better than Adamek. Even someone like Amir Mansour. And I know Mansour is older than Adamek, but he's not taken the same amount of punishment. He's not had the same amount of fights. And by looking at both guys on tape, you know, Mansour still clearly has more to offer than Adamek at this point. You know, it's a joke bit of matchmaking, it really is. And Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, you know, should really be criticised for it. And the card itself, I have to say, is quite underwhelming. We have Jesse Vargas taking on Thomas Delorme. You know, that is it's an okay fight, I guess. It's one of those fights where if you've got nothing better to do, you'll watch it. But it's nothing you're going to set in the diary and look forward to. It's an okay stay busy fight. We all know about Delorme at this point. He's chinny. He has a bad gas tank. You know, he's very flawed, but he's an okay fighter. That's an okay fight. It's one of those ones where you watch it if you can catch it, but if not, you're not going to go back and watch it. We have Artur Beterbiev fighting Callum Johnson. Artur Beterbiev is defending his IBF light heavyweight title in that fight. And this is actually a mandatory fight. None of his mandatories would fight him. They had to go all the way down in the rankings, and Callum Johnson accepted. So credit to him for that. But it pretty much is a mismatch. It's just how long Callum Johnson lasts. I suppose there is some level of intrigue there because Callum Johnson does hit quite hard. But, you know, apart from that, I mean, you're not really going to give Johnson much of a chance. I'm sure if we look at the odds on that fight, you know, Beterbiev is a monumental favourite. And lastly, we have Daniel Roman versus Gavin McDonnell. That is going to be for the WBA Super Bantamweight title. That's actually an okay fight. That is the most evenly matched fight on the card. But, you know, both of these guys are not really well known to the casual audience. I am familiar with both guys, especially Gavin McDonnell. And I think that fight will be actually quite decent and quite competitive. So that one's an okay fight, but the card itself is really, really, really underwhelming. And again, I've said this before, considering the hype this whole DAZN thing had, you know, you were always expecting a little bit better. But who knows, maybe this card will turn out to be a lot better than expected. That could always happen. It happens in boxing sometimes. Sometimes you get a card with loads of mismatches on paper, and sometimes it turns out okay, but I just can't really see that happening here. I can't see Miller having any issue with Adamek. I can't see Beterbiev having any issue with Callum Johnson. Jesse Vargas, he should beat Thomas Delorme, and you would imagine Daniel Roman will beat Gavin McDonald, but that fight is okay, to be fair. But the card itself, underwhelming, not the best, not one you're going to put in the diary. What do you guys think? Peace.